The darkness was his friend, keeping him hidden from sight as he sprinted through the woods. Gigantic paws hit the ground with thuds, muffled by the soil. The wind brushed against his thick gray fur. He felt free. This was the only time he felt this way, running in the night in his wolf form. At times like this, he could temporarily forget about his responsibilities and simply be a part of nature, a part of the night. Smaller animals scurried to their hiding places, avoiding the huge predators zipping through the forest. The wolf inhaled long and deep as it ran. Liam smiled within as the fresh air filled his lungs. This was what he had missed about Boulder Junction: the acres of forest, the freedom to run wild, and the fresh air. Other than that, he wouldn't mind never seeing the place again. It was where he had grown up, and the place that he had finally escaped when he was old enough. Family duty had forced him to return, and it seemed there was no escape this time. Liam came to a stop in front of a river. He stood still for a few minutes, resting on his haunches as he stared out across the dark water. He always enjoyed the peace and quiet of the forest at night. The only sounds audible were the sounds of nature. His ears perked up when he heard something that didn't quite fit in with the natural sounds. Footsteps, hushed by dirt and leaves, approached him. The feeling of danger coursed through him, sending him on high alert. More than likely, it wasn't someone merely out for a night stroll. Not at midnight, and certainly not in these woods. He sniffed the air, catching a whiff of an unfamiliar scent. A low growl rumbled in his chest as he got up and padded back into the safety of the bushes. He didn't want any trouble, and he really didn't want to kill anyone so soon after arriving back home. Liam let out a sigh. So much for a peaceful night run, he thought. He treaded lightly, careful not to make a sound. All he had to do was make it back home undetected. Stealthily, he moved through the woods, listening for any sign of his unwanted companion. There was silence. Had the person turned back? With any luck, whoever it was had taken caution and turned back. But he still couldn't shake the feeling of danger. His sense radar was always on point. But it was just a human, right? Stories of werewolf hunters that he had heard of as a child suddenly flooded his mind. It was the eeriness of his current situation that brought on the foolish memory. He had always thought hunters were nothing more than myths because he had never seen one. Plenty of stories about other wolves' experiences were heard, which had to have been exaggerated, he was sure. Wolf shifters were powerful, cunning creatures. There was no way a single human with a sword could take one down. And that was always how the story of the hunter went: a human wielding a sword, taking out a wolf 3 times his size. Ridiculous. The farther Liam walked into the forest, the more he should have felt at ease. He was sure he had put a good distance between him and whoever had been approaching from the other side of the river, but he still felt like he was being watched. His golden eyes surveyed the surrounding area. There was no one or anything in sight. His moderate pace then turned into a full-out run. Then he heard the footsteps again. They were approaching him at a rapid pace, going almost as fast as he was. So whoever was in the woods with him wasn't human, and it definitely wasn't a fellow wolf. For a second, he considered stopping to confront whoever, whatever, followed him. It could be a vampire on the prowl, but they were rare in this area. They avoided small towns. If he stopped, then he could have a midnight snack. His wolf loved the idea of fresh meat, but Liam shoved down the craving. He was sure he could outrun his pursuer. Suddenly, something whizzed past his head. What the hell? He looked ahead to see an arrow lodged in a tree. His eyes widened. Was he being hunted? Could it possibly be the hunter of legend on his tail? It was hard to believe, but he wasn't taking any chances. He decided not to lead whoever it was to where he lived.